Welcome everyone to the call. So I'm here with Tony Swantek, and Tony, as I was just saying, I so appreciate your time. I think I reach out to you maybe every 3 to 4 months, and I'm like, hey, can we do a chat? and you always say yes.
Sure. It's always a pleasure.
Well, look, I want to give a little bit of a background just for those who might be new listening in, maybe haven't heard from you before. But to give a little bit of a background to everyone, I know, well, this is what I believe, is that you're a master at scaling businesses. Really, with your background, you have built multiple billion-dollar businesses. And to me, you are masterful at identifying an inefficiency in the market, understanding what the solution needs to be, building that solution, scaling that solution really fast. I know Johns and Associates is the latest firm that you founded and took to over $1 billion in 2 years, which I don't know if there's a record, but that's pretty bloody quick. Very quick. Really, now you're focused on the next venture, which is in the blockchain technology space. And, that leads me into what we're going to talk about today, because you have co-founded the Rally blockchain, and then there are products that are sitting on that blockchain. One of the newest one that's been released, which is Opoly, which we're going to dive into. But fill me in, like, for you've built billion-dollar traditional businesses. So why is decentralized technology and the products that you're launching, why are they the most important thing that you're working on right now?
I think it comes down to timing and positioning. Building big companies, which, even I think before, I started building some of the bigger companies I've built over the last 5 to 7 years, we built some pretty decent size. We had an Inc. 500 company in restaurant delivery, kind of like an Uber Eats or a DoorDash or Just Eat. They're all over the world, I guess, different companies that'll deliver food to your doorstep or your office. At the end of the day, the same type of effort that it takes to create a multi-million-dollar business is the same type of effort it takes to create a multi-billion-dollar business. And so it just comes down to problems that you're solving. If you're doing more revenue, you're probably solving bigger problems or solving problems for more people. And it comes down to timing and positioning in the marketplace. And so the decentralized world, I feel like the timing and positioning is really good right now. I felt like, when I started in the industry, in the blockchain industry, and I've been in crypto a long time, our company started buying Bitcoin back in 2013 because we felt like it was undervalued, and still do to this day. We think it's grossly undervalued today, but that's an opinion. It's subjective. I may be right, I may be wrong. But what we've seen in the blockchain space, I think it reminded me of the internet in the mid-90s. And so you had this technology that was around, really. They developed, internet protocol, TCP, like that code was being developed in the 70s. And in 1983 is really when you started to see the internet go live, but I wasn't using it. Maybe, the armed forces, governments in countries maybe were sending emails. IBM was probably using emails. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, the high-level tech entrepreneurs and tech companies were participating in the internet in the 80s. But really, it was into the mid-90s where entrepreneurs started to come in and make the internet usable, whether it was Google, Sergey Brin, Larry Page, Jeff Bezos with Amazon figuring out, okay, if you find something on Google, I want you to buy it from me. I'll put it on my website and you can buy it. And then, you had Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, you had PayPal. Here's how you can pay for it on the internet. And so these entrepreneurs came in and they made the internet usable. They made it available for the masses. I think the regulatory environment when I first started in blockchain was certainly hostile to in the United States, to say it to the least. The SEC at that time, Gary Gensler was the head of the SEC, and he was suing everybody in crypto. Like, he was suing Coinbase, Ripple, the Ethereum Foundation. Other than Bitcoin, Bitcoin was the only, I think, cryptocurrency or blockchain project that wasn't being sued by the United States SEC. And that kind of uncertainty created a pretty big moat around the industry. No one that was in traditional markets or big entrepreneurs, in essence, were going to come into this space and try and figure out ways to make the blockchain available to the world. And so no one did, and a few of us, I think, early, and some earlier than others. My buddy Wright came in 2012. He was one, he started Bitcoin mining, became one of the biggest Bitcoin miners in North America. But 2014 is when he started developing layer one blockchains. And I think it's a long answer to a short question, but what got me excited about the centralized versus decentralized battle that's going on right now is the regulatory landscape changed in the United States over the last couple of years, and it's become much more friendly. And so that's given a lot of entrepreneurs the ability to kind of jump into the industry. And where we're as a community way ahead of the rest of the industry, I think, is two areas. One, making the blockchain invisible. Make it so my mom can use this platform or our digital AI assistant, our Operaly accounts, and she can use her credit card, pay for that service. And she's participating in blockchain technology without even knowing she's participating in blockchain technology. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge plus, because less than 7% of the world is dealing in blockchain or crypto. And so if you want to scale up to the masses, you've got to make it easy for them to use your technology, which reminds me of the internet in the 80s. It was somebody like me was not going to use the internet back then because I wasn't a coder. I didn't know how to develop code and type in HTML or whatever I needed to be doing. I still don't know that. I relied on entrepreneurs to make the user interface available for the layperson, so to speak. And so we're at the forefront of that as a community in blockchain. The second thing we're doing is tying blockchain to revenue. And why I think the timing and positioning is so important. For the first time in history, blockchain technology is allowing people to control and own their data. Blockchain is really simple. It's a ledger. It creates trust and transparency without the need of a third party. If you look at the internet as a way to transfer information real time throughout the world, blockchain allows you to send value real time throughout the world, which people think of cryptocurrency as that value. I can send Bitcoin. You're in Australia. I'm in Puerto Rico. If I wanted to work on a real estate project with you and I needed to send you $1 million, too late tonight, like my bank's closed, I got to wait for them to open in the morning, call them. By the time my bank sends the wire, your bank's closed. So we're talking, it may be 3, 4, 5 international wires, 7 days maybe before you have access to that $1 million. Whereas if you said, hey, here's my Bitcoin wallet, and you send it to me in a Signal chat or whatever, and I want to send you Bitcoin, within 2-3 minutes, I can send you $1 million worth of Bitcoin, and that transaction is complete. So that's the sending of value. But I think what's more valuable than just the currency itself, like a Bitcoin or an Ethereum, will be something like our data. Every human on the planet, well, I'd say 6 billion, a little over 6 billion humans on the planet are participating in the internet. They're online. And so I think all 6 billion people, their data is being owned and controlled by a few huge corporations and governments as well. You've got Apple, you've got Google, Microsoft, which, they're big investors in ChatGPT. Bill Gates is a big investor in Anthropic, which is Claude and OpenClaw. And so, you've got these huge companies that control everyone's data, monetize everyone's data. The average American, I think their data annually is worth just over $6,500. I think even in emerging markets, like third world markets that are just getting online, that person's data is worth about $300 a year. And so what blockchain is going to do is it's going to allow us to share an opportunity with all the consumers on the planet to own and control their data. And instead of the status quo, instead of Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Google and these huge companies making trillions of dollars a year off of everyone's data, we're giving people an opportunity to own and control their data. And when you look at the choice that we're offering, I think the biggest problem for the world is most people, the 6 billion people online, don't even know they have a choice to go into the decentralized world where they own their data. And I always say you have to choose. If you don't make a choice, Mark Zuckerberg is happy to choose for you. Google, they've already made the choice for you. ChatGPT is choosing for you, and they're choosing centralized. They're choosing the control where they get trillions of dollars and you get nothing. They're choosing the control where the United States government is the largest purchaser of data on planet Earth. And so if you want governments, I'm sure Australia is not far behind, and Canada, and all these, the European Union, all these governments are going to big tech, and they're their biggest clients. They're buying our data up. They want our information. They want to know our location, where we're at, when we're there. And so blockchain is going to even the playing field. It really is, if we can get out and share the story. And so I think the reason I've put so much time, energy, effort, money into blockchain is I see this transition, which the World Economic Forum back in 2021 estimated blockchain technology would disrupt up to 867 trillion in traditional markets. That's not a once in a lifetime number. That's a one-time number. Like that's a way bigger shift in wealth than the internet. And the people that helped the internet go mainstream, they're household names. Like, we know the Bill Gateses of the world, the Steve Jobs, the Zuckerbergs, the Googles, the Amazons. We know the companies, we know the founders of those companies, because it was such a big shift in societal wealth. The blockchain is going to dwarf that shift. And so if as an entrepreneur, we feel like timing and positioning is important, which I think it's of the utmost importance if you want to be successful. I don't know a better game to be playing right now than the blockchain and fields. And that's why I've put pretty much everything else I'm doing, I've kind of off-ramped to my executives, my vice presidents. My wife runs our accounting firm. She's the president of Jones and Associates. So I've kind of off-ramped all of my responsibility. There's still some things I do. I've got a call with our tax attorneys for Jones tomorrow that I have to do, and that's fine. There's still duty calls once in a while in traditional business, but 95+% of my time is in the blockchain.
There's a couple of things that you've said there that I'd love for you to dive into a little bit more, the timing and positioning, because my brain went to, okay, the regulatory barriers have reduced, therefore
Sure.
Entrepreneurs go, cool, we see the opportunity, we can make a play at this now. But then for anything to be valuable, you need the consumer, you need the everyday person like me to go, okay, I see value, I am using that product, putting money into that product. Where are we at, especially with what you've built with the Rally blockchain, timing and positioning specifically? Obviously, the opportunity for the entrepreneur is there. But where are we at in the sense of, like you said, you'll be using blockchain whether you know it or not.
Right.
Blockchain will be working in the background and you won't know it. Opoly, right? The latest product that has gone to market, which is run through the Rally blockchain. Where is it at as a product in the sense of the opportunity that you can scale it quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's got me the most excited is the two services that we're offering. Obviously, our link, which we're on right now, that's getting closer and closer. We've made a lot of strides forward in the last few weeks. Honestly. Yeah, I mean, certainly over the last few months, but over the last few weeks, even we've started to really lean into AI devs, and our lead developer is probably one of the best in the world, and probably one of the first that was really utilizing AI to develop software. And we've started to hire junior AI devs, and their efficiency's through the roof. And so they're doing a full kind of recoding of our Link Studio, which I think they did a code audit, kind of a full AI recode, which I think will be done in the next few weeks. Probably would have been done earlier, but we have the Operaly launch because we looked at Operaly, and it's one of those things where how quick they spun it up. We started coding that with that group it was Christmas Eve last year, so not that long ago. And there's weeks where that AI dev team, they'll push over 100 updates. There's times where if I see it like an issue or user interface could be better, I can report it to the AI. I can tell Operaly, hey, I'm having an issue clicking here because this is in the way. I can click it, but it's not that easy. And it will develop the code to fix that issue. and then let our human devs oversee it real quick and then push it forward and patch that issue, and it's moved on. Like, it's crazy how quick the AI can fix itself if there's any issues that are found. And so I think it's the first time that we could add 1 million users onto a platform, and we could do it tomorrow and it won't break. Like, not only won't it break, like there won't be any issues. Like, you as an existing user won't notice that 1 million new users just piled on. With Operaly. With our link, we're still a few weeks away, but hopefully we can get to that point. You know, if 1 million users came on our link tomorrow, we'd have issues for sure. We're not quite ready to handle that kind of influx, which is why we've been in beta and why we've been controlled. You know, we got a couple thousand users. Operaly, it's a one-stop shop for all AI. And so it takes all the big LLMs and your GPTs, your Groks, your Geminis, you know, Claude, it can use the best of the best. It'll figure out what's the best LLM to go to, where your data, it stays with you, all your private data. If you need to ask ChatGPT a question, you're not asking. It's going through an enterprise account through Operaly, and Operaly's asking on your behalf. So ChatGPT doesn't even know you asked. And so that, I think, is the big advantage that we're going to have, that companies like ChatGPT are never going to let the users own and control their data, and they're never going to let the users own and control the platform and the underlying technology. And so what we've done is you've got this blockchain layer, which is our foundational layer that allows the ownership to go to the community, to the users. You've got an AI layer that sits on top, and then you've got these real world products and services. And so people like us that maybe can't code in blockchain, can't code AI, we can use these products and services that we're already using, something like a Zoom. I was using Zoom before I started using Our-Link. Our-Link was just better priced and better conversions on my presentation. So it was kind of a no-brainer. It's saving me money and making me more money than Zoom does. All right, that's a no-brainer. And I'm getting rewarded to use the platform and share it with others. Then I was using, you know, paid version of ChatGPT. I had a paid version of Canva. You know, I had a few other AI platforms that I was a paid user in, for whether it was images or video. A lot of I wasn't, but my companies were, and the IT guys were using the software, but I was paying for it, or our companies were. And then being able to put that in one package with Operaly, having the GPT type, you know, chatbot, search engine type usage, which is the vast majority of people use AI like a search engine. But then you have the agentic side, like an OpenClaw, but it's user friendly, where grandma and grandpa could actually spin up an agent and have it start checking their email, have it start creating Facebook posts for a young entrepreneur. And so, you know, making that platform usable. I think the average user of AI, if they're just using it like a search engine, which is how I used it for the most part, that's like using the internet and only sending email. Like, you don't do anything else with the internet but just email people. And certainly, you know, that's not a bad use case. It's going to save you time and more speed than mailing a letter, you know, especially if you're mailing it to Australia or, you know, Australia to Puerto Rico. But at the end of the day, if that's all you were doing with the internet, you're missing out. Like, there's so many more use cases for your life, for your businesses, obviously, that the internet offers. Blockchain is the same. If you were just buying cryptocurrency, that's one use case. That's like email to the internet. Bitcoin to blockchain is literally one tiny use case. And so, you know, for us, being able to bring the masses in, allow them to use that technology, and being able to confidently say we could add 1 million users tomorrow. I think, you know, our big launch is coming here June 6th and 7th in Las Vegas. It's a white label version, so it's actually a white label of Operaly. But we could have, it'll be over 100,000 people live and virtual at that event, and I think it'll be a nice way to launch. I'm sure we'll have some more big events like that, but timing is really good right now to be able to go to market and educate consumers that, hey, you don't have to let Bill Gates and Sam Altman control your data. You can actually buy and control everything yourself.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I will be the first to admit, for anyone listening in, you really don't have to be techie. I'm terrible at tech. My partner just gets all of my headaches. I just hand them over to him, thank goodness. But
Sure.
this, last night, and I'm not going to give away the idea, but I did put in to create a business plan and to scale to 100 million in 2 years, Tony, which is probably like small play for you.
Oh no, that's a big
Massive.
number.
It's blowing
That's a
my
big
mind.
number for about anybody, right? That's a big number.
Is huge. And Opoly took it to the mission section, which means, and deployed the agents for everything that is required to execute on that, right? So it's not I've got a question, give me the output and the answer to that question. It's like, hey, I've got an idea and this is the outcome I want, but I can't afford to sit down with my tax specialist for 10 hours and work out the structure. I can't afford to bring on the marketing guy and pay him 60 grand a year to get started with some baseline stuff. I can't afford social media and to put into SEO and all of that. And it deployed all of the agents and a month by month execution plan. And I think for me, with chatting with, people in my other business and different networks, that's probably what the everyday person isn't getting. It's like, oh, is it just the same as what I already use, like the standard tools? I ask a question, I get an answer. And it's like, no, it's having an agent for every area of your life. And it comes up with the plan and then executes the plan for you. I would love to know, in your opinion, and you have touched on it there, but I think that everyone needs to get this. What is the fundamental flaw with these big tech companies like Claude and Grok and ChatGPT with using big tech tools? And how does Opoly really solve for the person that says, you know what, I'm just going to use the standard tools that I've got, and they wait another 2 years to use a sovereign platform like Opoly? What do you think the biggest risk is there?
Well, I think at the end of the day, there's, like I said, that choice you're making, decentralized control or centralized control. And I think anyone that's been involved in technology would agree that as technology starts to shift, especially at the societal level, like big shift, it's always better to be on the early side. And normally, as with our link, the early side, it's a dirt road. It's not the Autobahn. It's not clean sailing. It's not smooth. There's potholes. There's things we're fixing. And so, I'm exclusive on our link, but certainly it's probably easier for someone that's doing meetings with thousands of people to use Zoom even to this day. And that's fine. We're in the dirt road. Now, like I said, the AI coding is putting the Autobahn together pretty quickly to where we could handle thousands of people in a meeting, no issues, no problems. Operaly is a little different. It's an easier product to scale. You don't have critical errors really in Operaly, meaning if you came onto this meeting, we're on our link right now, and then someone came in on their mobile phone with an iPhone 8 and a Firefox browser that was like 5 updates old, so I don't know what browser I'm, but maybe it's the 2.3 instead of the 5.1 or whatever. Their mic may not work. That browser, we may not be optimized to let them talk. And maybe there's nothing we can do about that other than our coders have to go in and optimize for that browser, but it may take a day or so to do that. And so that's a critical error. That means, we got to go over to Zoom, or let's just do a Signal 3-way call. That's life. That could happen in that scenario because we're not optimized. Whereas something like Operaly, you're using it kind of yourself, so it's browser based. You can download the native app. So it doesn't matter what browser you're using. It doesn't matter, if you download the app on the App Store for your iPhone or the Play Store for your Android, it'll work. And so it's a much faster to scale service than our link is. And so, for us to be able to go to market is all we've ever asked for, being able to bring in customers as fast as we can. I've always kind of had the reins pulled back on all of our community members going, hey, we're limited. We actually limited the beta on this to like 1,000 users. We got to 2,000 because people would bring in someone who was influential or, really good entrepreneur and like, hey, I want to use it. I want to try it out. So we just kept letting people add more and more users. But we always had that narrative. Hey, listen, it's in beta. Let us know if you have issues. Let us know if you have any problems. With Operaly, it's just so much easier to scale up. And so I think our timing and positioning for people that are going to get involved, as you talked about, You can wait and get involved 2 years from now. You can keep using big tech, let them monetize your data, let them not reward you for anything. Or you can come in on the dirt road with our link. You can we're looking more and more like the Audubon with Operaly. And I think it is a better mousetrap. At the end of the day, the time to invest in Tesla, the best time was when they were getting started, when their batteries were burning up in car garages, and no one was happy with the Tesla. That was when you wanted to invest in Tesla, was when it was kind of the dirt road. I think it's not a bad time to invest in Tesla now. I think they're moving into AI, robotics. I mean, there's a lot of upside there. I think they're going to, if they are going to end up with SpaceX kind of getting swallowed up by Tesla, who knows what all Elon's got going on. But at the end of the day, I would say that probably the best time to invest in an entrepreneur like Elon was right when he was getting started. And then the second best time is now, is today. And I would say the same thing about blockchain. The best time to get involved in blockchain was 2009, 2010, when the Bitcoin blockchain was just getting going. That would have been a great time, to buy Bitcoin at under $1. The second best time to get involved in blockchain is today. So if you didn't get involved in the best time, which was right at the beginning, you're still early. The internet, it was 83 when it launched, 07 when the iPhone came out. So you had this, this long gap, decades-long gap before it really took hold and the world, had the internet at the palm of their hands, truly. Blockchain is no different. You got 09, really the Bitcoin blockchain kind of started the party. We're not even a couple decades out yet. 2029 will be decades. So we're, young in that aspect that, the internet took a lot longer. I think AI and technology is going to speed up the pace. And I think the regulatory environment is going to speed up the pace. And so you can certainly sit on the sidelines and continue to use big tech and let those guys, kind of monetize your data, your network, your content, or you can make that shift. Again, it's your choice, if you choose. If you don't choose, again, you're giving that choice over to big tech.
Well, as you said, it's kind of like an invisible choice, right? Like you didn't know you made it. You didn't know what it cost you, but it's happening either way. And, it's people just unaware of it. I think that's the biggest thing. They don't realize, like you mentioned before, the value for a person with agency over our own data is $6,500 a year. And in emerging markets, it's $300 per year. I mean, if you put that up and you say, well, do you want this or do you want it to go to Zuckerberg's pocket? You choose, it becomes a no-brainer from there. So I think that's absolutely a fundamental flaw, is not having agency over our data in a world where now with blockchain we can. And then even just on a practical flaw, like I've cancelled Canva, I've cancelled Zoom, I've cancelled ChatGPT. Why would I pay multiple subscriptions out of my pocket when I can pay one and access them all? So to me, that is just the most simple solution to a really big problem, that people have a lot of leakage of money in their life with all of these big tech tools, and they don't need to when we have Opoly. I want to talk about ownership a little bit. You touched on it there, but someone might be listening to this and going, oh, that's cool for you guys. Like I have part ownership. I call it fractional ownership in the Rally blockchain, just as you do. You own a bigger part of it than me, for sure. But I have some ownership in it. And so someone might be listening going, oh, that's cool. Like you guys have got the opportunity. And they're just thinking I can only be a user. And that's actually not the case in a decentralized network. Can you explain the difference between having ownership in a network like this versus just being a user? What does that?
Yeah, sure. I think everyone should start as a user because if you don't like the product, you don't like the service, you probably don't want to own the underlying technology. If you own a restaurant and you're getting ready to go public and do an IPO and put your restaurant on the stock market, and maybe you invite me over to try a meal there. If I have a great meal, I'll probably invest in your IPO and try and get some of your stock. If I get food poisoning, I'll be like, you know what, I'll sit on the sidelines for this one. And so we're no different. Like, use our link, use Operaly. If you like it, you have the opportunity to own the underlying tech. And there's really three ways to own the underlying tech, because there's three branches of governance that give you voting rights. The simplest way is to purchase Node software. And what Node software does, it basically helps the blockchain run. We're borrowing people's computer power to run our blockchain network. No different than if you got cell phone towers on farmland, which Australia's got it. Here in the U.S., whether it's Verizon or AT&T, T-Mobile, internationally, Vodafone, O2. There's all kinds of wireless companies around the world. Telemex, Movistar, they're all over. A company like Verizon or AT&T, they don't buy a farm. They don't go, hey, we need to build a tower. Let's pay this farmer for all of his land. They go to the farmer and go, can we lease a little corner of your land and build this cell phone tower? And we'll pay you every month kind of a lease to allow us to run our, Verizon network or Vodafone network on your land. You're letting us basically put a node on your land. And a blockchain is very similar in the fact that, hey, we'll use your computer power, whether it's your laptop or you could host it through third parties. That's what I do. There's a lot of you could use Amazon web hosting, Google. There's cheaper ones than that. Vultr. There's one called Block Fabric that I use that's probably the best bang for the buck. And they run the software for me, but I'm earning tokens because I let this blockchain borrow my computer power. And there's different levels of nodes. The first level is I'd call it like a mini node, like $250. It's called a droid. Gets you a few rally tokens a day. Nothing too major, but it's a miner and it's getting you some tokens. Then you got a $2,500 node. It's called a block bot, and that'll get you more tokens. Quite a bit more tokens. And then you've got a full smart node, which those are not cheap. They run near $14,000, $15,000 each USD. And so that'll generate quite a few tokens on a monthly basis. That's the node that gives you voting rights just for being a node owner. So you actually would have a say in how the project moves forward. You'd have voting power. The second way you can vote is by holding tokens in a wallet. And you can earn tokens through running a node. You can earn tokens by buying them out of the open market, going to Uniswap, get your MetaMask wallet and start buying. I think maybe Binance, you can find some of our rally tokens. We're in beta, so there's not a lot of liquidity. There's almost no one selling, but there's sellers out there. You can buy from them. And if you get more than 25,000 tokens in a wallet, you start to get voting rights. The more tokens, the more votes you get. And then the third way to have ownership is through community building, bringing revenue to the project. If you're using the service and you like it, and then you tell your friend about it, and then your friend puts his company on our link and he's got 500 employees and they're all using our link, all that revenue is helping you earn tokens every single day. And so you're what's called a community builder, and every day the more revenue you help to do, the higher community score. That's how they have voting power. I have people that are just into the market, and that's how they have voting power. And I have people that are building the network, and that's how they have voting power. I do all three of those. I know you do all three of those. So a lot of our community members do everything. We run nodes, we have tokens that sit in our wallets, and we go out and we drive revenue and build the community. And so, if someone says, this is really cool, I want a piece of it, I want to be involved, and if it goes really well, I want to benefit from that, you can kind of pick your path. Any three of those, choices are great, or you could be like Nick and myself and just choose all three.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I love is the, pick your path to ownership. And I'm just curious because I know you speak about this wealth transfer, like the biggest wealth transfer of our time. That period is coming, or maybe it's happening now. Would love for you to dive deep on that. But is this part of it? Is because the everyday person is able to move into ownership of financial assets, and this particular technology is a big part of that shift?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, blockchain will change the way companies raise funding. I think capital stacks will look completely different as far as like how you determine your raise. If you do a traditional, seed round or a second round raise, or at the end of the day, if I come into your seed round, I've got a very non-liquid asset if it becomes an asset. Whereas if I'm coming into a blockchain project and there's liquidity, I could exit at any time I choose to and move my voting rights to whoever pays me enough money to take over my voting rights. And I don't have to ask permission. I'm not locked up. When you have a decentralized raise, it creates way more freedom and way more opportunity. And so, I'm looking at kind of what's happening in this space and going, you know what, like it's so early. If you look at the entire market cap of all cryptocurrencies combined, it's like under $2.3 trillion right now, which sounds like a lot, but that's a lot smaller than Apple. And not to take anything away from the iPhone or the MacBook Pro or whatever it is, world-changing technology. It's amazing. Being able to own and control your data is far more valuable than iPhone is. It just across the world. There's no doubt about it. One of the reasons the iPhone has any value is because of the data it collects. And so that data is very valuable. So if the blockchain pulls that data and isolates it to where you don't have to share it with anyone, or if you choose to share it, you get paid for it. I think that's a much more valuable technology than almost any other technology on the planet. And so, I look at the opportunity now going, we're early. The market cap, I think Bitcoin alone should have a $15 trillion market cap as a store of value and a transfer of value. Now, again, that's my opinion. I may be right, I may be wrong. It's subjective. But there's other people, Elon Musk, there's a lot of people smarter than me that have a similar opinion. There's people that are smarter than me, like Warren Buffett, that have the opposite of me, that think that Bitcoin should be worth $0. Now, even Warren Buffett has said blockchain technology is completely transformative. And so he understands the value in the technology itself. I just think, when we're looking at cryptocurrencies like even Solana with a, $45 billion market cap, it's like the 7th largest cryptocurrency in the world. Solana is an on-ramp for meme coins. Like, you can launch poop coin on Solana like that, which they did, the Iran coin when the Iran war started, like whatever society's looking at, whatever's the buzzword of the day, Trump coin, like people go on Solana and launch meme coins. And there's nothing right or wrong about that. That's what they do. But I believe that a coin and a project that allows you to own your data instead of someone like Bill Gates and Sam Altman at ChatGPT or Google with Gemini, I think a coin that allows the world to own and control their data is more valuable than launching meme coins. And so I think owning the underlying tech is one of the smartest moves that people can make if they like the technology.
Well, it goes back to what you said at the start, which is the big value comes from solving the big problem, and ownership and control over our own data. That is the big problem that it's solving.
Agreed.
So yeah, just to wrap, Tony, I'd love to hear from you because you have built multiple incredibly successful businesses, but how do you think this build and scaling these products through the Rally blockchain, how do you think this build is going to compare with everything else that you've done before?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I put so much time, energy, and effort, and I think God has really guided me into this industry, which He's been guiding me since I was 23, really, in the business world, is because of the upside. And I think it will be far, far more successful than any other company, probably than all other companies I've had combined up to this point. And I, yeah, I mean, Jordan's and Associates, we did over 10 billion in tax credit filings our first 2 years with 2 billion in profit. And so that's a substantial amount of revenue and money. But when I look at the upside in blockchain and AI, it's just a far greater problem you're solving, which leads to a far greater opportunity that's at hand. Now, there's still a lot of wood to chop. There's still a lot that needs to be done to get to that point. But the upside is very obvious to me. And my friends created the Gala Games project, which, kind of my initial story in blockchain was sitting on the sidelines watching my buddy create a $40 billion market cap in about 3.5 years. It was actually like 47 billion market cap in like 3.5 years, which, I've done some amazing things, but I haven't built a $40 billion company. And so the industry as a whole, blockchain as a whole, because I think it's so undervalued, the upside for the traditional entrepreneur is so much greater here because the underlying asset compared to the Australian dollar, compared to the US dollar, I think we all can agree, the dollar ain't what it used to be, whether you're in Australia, whether you're in the United States. I look at the consumer pricing index from 1971 when the US came off the gold standard. You used to be able to take $1 and buy 1 ounce of gold. It was the gold standard. $1 was worth 1 ounce of gold. And as we came off the gold standard, we got to a point which, we started coming off of it. Bretton Woods really, 1913, I think it was. And then 71, we came completely off of it with Nixon. And at that point, $1 from 1971 is worth 8 times what today's dollar is worth. So if you wanted to buy an $800,000 home, if you could get your hand on 1971, it would only cost you $100,000 instead of $800,000, which is better. Bitcoin has been outperforming the dollar every year, like quite a bit. From 09 obviously to today, there's no other asset class that's stronger. And what we're doing as a community is adding objective value. Our project is valuable not because I think it's valuable, but because a lot of people are using our products and services, and 100% of the revenue is buying our token out of the market. And so if you've got a lot of revenue, you've almost got a floor value on your token. I don't know what it's going to do. It's in Uniswap less than a penny right now, like 1/10 of a penny, somewhere around there. And you look at, Gala got to 87 cents at its peak, Gala Games. And we've done more. We're on pace. The first 5 days of this month, we'll do more revenue than Gala Games did their first 3 years combined. And so I don't know if we could do what Gala did down the road, but I can tell you the trajectory is right on point. And so that's why I'm encouraging people, use the service. Because once you use the service, you're probably going to want to own the underlying technology.
Yep. Absolutely. Summed up beautifully, Tony. Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for giving us this time and having this conversation again. And no doubt we'll be having another one in a few months' time to see where things are at with both R-Link and Opoly. And I know I'm excited for these products. I mean, I'm using them every single day. They have replaced so much in my personal life, my business life. It's Opoly specifically, the relief that it gives, the mental load that it takes off you, the execution, like you can just do things faster and better without, the exhaustion that maybe I would have felt before. Yeah, it's incredible. So thank you and the team for creating such an incredible product that we have. It's fantastic. It's making a difference to people's lives.
Agreed. It's been our pleasure. Definitely always excited to chat with you, and looking forward to our next one here in a few months.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Tony. Talk soon.